talk about Ferrari because it's all kicking off in the Tifosi, many of whom are in principle Charles Leclerc fans, and argued yesterday that what Ferrari should have done to boost the dwindling confidence of the Monegasque is have a charging Carlos Sainz hold station. What do you make of that, Peter?
Oh, it's complete nonsense. And there's no way Charles would have accepted that either, I don't think. Or Carlos. I mean, even if they told Charles to hold station and Carlos to hold station, I mean, how would they do that? I mean, Carlos was so much quicker at that point of the race, tire-wise. Why? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And I think you'd have to not know very much about Formula One to even suggest that. I mean, I'm probably a much earlier Charles Leclerc fan than all these Tifosi have now discovered him. And I've always been a fan of Charles, right back to his just virtually from the day he got out of karting. And I still rate him unbelievably high. I think he's brilliant, but he's definitely got a problem in qualifying at the moment. And he's saying now, oh, it's the way I do the outlap and the temperatures. I don't think it is. I don't think it's something as relatively simple as that, because let's face it, Ferrari would be pretty much on the ball there, and they're getting it right with Carlos Sainz. So why wouldn't they be getting it right with Charles Leclerc? I think it's something more than that. And I think in Melbourne, it was definitely overdriving in sector 2. Here, I can't say for sure that it was overdriving, but there's something that's going on there in terms of the way he manages the tire in the actual lap, not the build up to it. That is something he needs to look at a little bit. And I think Red Bull have always done a very good job with that. Max, particularly Max working with Adrian. Adrian's got a great feel for when to push and when to shove on that qualifying lap in terms of the tires. And that's what Charles needs to be looking at, I think. But he was really good through sector 1, which means the uphill S's in qualifying. So Charles Leclerc has still got all the talent in the world. He just needs to get out of this. It's a bit like having the putting yips in golf. He just needs to get out of this business of one lap qualifying and just get the lap time in there and be up there front of the grid where he should be. Then everything will be fine. But as for, no, there's no way they should have had Charles finishing in front of Carlos in that race. No chance.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Peter, I wanted to ask you about it. I've been paying particular attention to the variance between Carlos's feedback and the way that he talks and summarises a race or a qualifying session as versus Charles. As an example, Charles in qualifying was doing one of these, right? He was like, I really don't know. When asked, he was like, I don't really know where the performance has gone. Typically, I'm a brilliant qualifier, so I just can't connect the dots. Post-qualifying, in stark contrast, you get something from Carlos Sainz, and he's talking about the race simulations in free practice, that we were quicker as Ferrari than were Red Bull, but I understand if we normalise for fuel, that we potentially were running lighter than that. Like, he's doing this 4D thinking as far as his understanding of what's going on in real time. Whereas Charles is just, and this isn't indicative of Charles not knowing, because he's clearly got a decent racing brain, but comparing the two, I think the contrast has never been more than it is now as far as their ability to leverage racing IQ in real time. Agree or disagree, Pete?
No, I agree with you 100%, Cameron, and well observed. And I think what we're seeing there, it's a quantum shift in both directions. We're seeing Charles is under pressure now because he's the chosen one and he's getting beaten by the chosen one. And he's got to start asserting his dominance, obviously. And he doesn't understand, and nor do his garage really understand why he's not getting it together in qualifying. It's a mystery. And at the same time, Carlos is exponentially getting better with every race virtually. And that's really impressive to see. And confidence builds on confidence. And he's got it all together beautifully. And they're going in sort of that direction at the moment. And yeah, it'll come back for sure. Charles will come back and he'll probably end the year dominating Carlos, I suspect. But right now, it's a moment in time when we should really enjoy this, because you're seeing such strength of character from Carlos Sainz, and you're seeing him deliver under pressure in a way that he's taken 4 or 5 years to get to this point, and he's now absolutely right there. Beautiful sweet spot on everything he does, whether it's describing the car, whether it's preparation for the race, whether it's his fitness, whether it's getting over the fact that his trainer left him over the winter, whether it's all sorts of things, and obviously being sacked by Ferrari. And he's using all those actually to be stronger. And we don't see that with human beings, let alone athletes, very often, but it's working. It's happening with Carlos Sainz, and it's something we should really savor. And Charles is quite an emotional guy, and he's very very intellectually bright, emotionally and in terms of IQ, but he's definitely an emotional guy, and right now he needs to, he needs to just be very systematic and scientific about the way he goes about his racing, I think, and just try to get all the emotion out of it. I'm not convinced that, for example, I'm not saying this is in any way around, but I mean, it was interesting, Charles coming to Suzuka and thinking about Jules Bianchi and doing the helmet around Jules, which was a really nice thing to see. But I'm not, I can only speak from experience of working with the drivers with whom I have managed and worked over the years. And they just think of themselves over a race weekend. They just totally focused on what they're going to be doing. And to the extent that they're not really interested in anything else that's going on. And I guess I kind of accelerated that in the minds, because I remember as a kid reading about Jimmy Connors, the great American tennis player, who's a little bit of an enigma when he was playing against Borg and McEnroe. It was a loner. And I read an interview with him once, and he said, the first thing I do when I enter a tournament is get my manager to check where all the players are staying. And then I make sure I go to a hotel where none of the players are going to be staying, because I don't want to see their faces. These are the guys I'm going to want to kill on court. I don't want to see their faces in breakfast in the coffee shop. And I thought, wow. And as much as I could, I kind of brought that in with Nigel and with Carlos Reutemann. And I just wonder whether Charles is at the moment, he needs to just be a little bit tougher and a little bit harder and a little bit more into Charles Leclerc, I think. And he needs to win, let's face it, he needs to win the Monaco Grand Prix, doesn't he? And I think Ferrari will be really quick at Monaco this year, really quick. And he needs to make sure he's the guy that crosses the line in front if they're going to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. He needs to rid himself of that Monaco jinx. I'd give Charles credit in that, for once, I've criticised him often in recent weeks about not being as assertive enough with his strategy, because he knows that Ferrari have a cheeky unforced error strategically in them, and for once he was pushing back, right, because they wanted to two-stop, and he was like, well, listen, look where I am in terms of my position on track. Why don't we roll the dice and try a one-stop? So I'll give him some credit in terms of that, but I'm still a bit concerned, Peter, when I hear him saying during quali and free practice, well, why aren't we out? He's still kind of almost a little bit submissive for me as I look from a distance, but hey, he's absolutely got the pace. I suppose if you were going to inbuild into a driver either pace or strategic assertiveness, you would take pace every single day, right? Because you can learn and develop the latter more than you can the former.
Yeah, I think I don't share that necessarily. I don't think Charles is any worse or better than other drivers in terms of getting on the radio and saying, why aren't we going out, or why aren't we doing this? But I think what we saw in the race was a classic example of Freddie Vasseur getting everything sorted and good people around Charles, giving him the confidence to be able to just say, right, no, I'm going to go for this long stop and long stint. And that wouldn't have happened, I don't think, under the previous managerial regime. And that's all credit to the people in Charles' garage and to the way Charles is now freed up his ability to be assertive. And that's a very good thing. And having made the decision, there's a double whammy here, because having made the decision, he's then got to make it work. And that's why one of the reasons he drove so well on that long stint. And all credit to everybody there, and obviously to Charles. And that, we shouldn't underplay how well he drove in that stint. It was 25 laps, I think, on the medium, which was a tyre that McLaren didn't like particularly much and didn't use particularly well. Can't really bring Red Bull in here as a litmus test, but certainly it wasn't the flavour of the month tyre for the race. And Charles was just superb on that. And that also shows, doesn't it, how well the car is now developing a sweet spot around which the drivers can manipulate the car. They get a bit of understeer here, they can start to play with the throttle and the steering and get it back again, and they can do the same with the rear and use all the gizmos as well, obviously. And that's a really positive step, and that really puts into contrast the work that Mercedes didn't do over the winter quite clearly, because what they wanted to achieve was a car exactly where Ferrari are right now, and they didn't pull it off.